What's up, everyone? It's Shaletta. I'm here getting a phone for one of my newly minted teenagers with Xfinity Mobile. They've got great options, affordable plans, and solid coverage that works for our whole family. With Xfinity Mobile, my daughter can stay connected with me wherever she goes. And did you know when you sign up, you can get an extra phone line free for a full year? Switch to Xfinity Mobile today for more savings, more smiles, and more ways to stay connected.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Financially Fit Podcast. I am your host, Andre Creighton. I am very excited to be here with you all, as always. You probably hear me say that all the time, but I am truly excited to be here with you all. And I hope that you have gotten something eventful out of our and fruitful out of our podcast throughout the year. This will be our last episode for 2024. Wow. What a year it's been. A lot has happened this year. There's been a lot of change, and hopefully, you guys are well on your journey to becoming financially fit. As I always say, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So the way that we step through things on this podcast is truly to be maniacal every single day towards our goals. We are not looking for a strategy that's going to make us a millionaire overnight. While that'd be great, it's not realistic. Um, you know, I truly try to do the right things every single day of my life financially to make sure that, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 30 years from now, I'm in a really good position from a financial standpoint to stand the times of, whatever happens in the economy. As we know, there are things that occur economically that are out of our control. For instance, the pandemic hits in 2020. Lots of people lose their jobs. Lots of people are working from home. Uh, Infrastructure is not really set up to work from home in many different companies. Uh, Inflation occurs over the past couple of years at a tremendous rate that has increased rent, um, gas, food, that's impacting our finances. How can we put ourselves in the best position possible to stand the time? And that's what we focus on this podcast. So, with that being said, today we're going to talk about the differences between a health savings account, an HSA, and a flexible spending account, an FSA. But before we hop in, I just want to take some time quickly to, as we're diving into kind of talking about health, to really give my condolences to those that work at United Health Group. The tragedy that's just occurred over the past week and a half. We know that there are issues within our health system, but it never justifies the loss of life. So I just wanted to take some time to give that. And, I think this is a good time and reason why this topic is so relevant is while while we all have our different ways and walks of life into uh, and experiences in the health system and in various systems, what we do know is that systems are not a one size fits all. There's going to be people that love the system, there's going to be people that are indifferent, and there's going to be people that are disgruntled with the system. But what we can do and what we can control is focusing on the things that are within our power to fit within that system and optimize that system as best as possible. And that's why today we're going to talk about an HSA and an FSA. So with that being said, what is a health savings account? So a health savings account basically is an account that you contribute to through payroll, usually through your employer, but there are independent options where you can contribute those dollars post tax. So um, let's talk about eligibility. So you must typically in a health savings account, you must be enrolled in a high deductible health plan. So typically, what that means is, you know, you're enrolled. There's different health plans. There's some that are very high deductible. So say your deductible is 5K, and say that there's a lower deductible where it's maybe 1K, right? The high deductible plans which you want to enroll in, because are going to use those HSA dollars to support those deductibles, and support those out of pockets. So in 2024, there was a contribution limit level of for an individual of $4,150. So if you were an individual contributing to a high deductible plan into a HSA, you can contribute up to $4,150. If you are contributing on behalf of a family, so say you're married or you have a domestic partner and you live together and maybe you have kids, and you want on this plan, you can contribute as a family up to $8,300 in 2024. And then obviously, if the IRS allows us, if you're over the age of 55, there's a catch-up contribution that you can do, so you can actually add an additional $1,000 on top of those for individual or family, depending on your circumstances of your family. Obviously, there's huge tax advantages for this. The contributions are made pre-tax, which is huge. Is going to lower the amount of money that you're taxed on and increase your take home. It grows tax free, which is really nice. You know, you think about investments, right? If you invest in the stock market or you invest, uh, let's say that you're putting money into your IRA or 401k, those gains don't grow tax free. When you take that money out, depending on the type of retirement vehicle you're using, you are going to pay tax on those gains. So the other cool thing about an HSA is the withdrawals are tax free as long as they're being used for a qualified medical expense. Now, obviously, you can take money out of your HSA, like say you're running into a hard time, and you just need some money. You can do that, but there are penalties. So you will have to pay tax on that, because it wasn't towards a qualified medical expense. So it's very important to be thoughtful about, really understanding what are the medical expenses that I have on a yearly basis, and being able to provide your contributions based on those numbers. The other cool thing about an HSA, that's very different than an FSA, is that any unused funds can be rolled over. You don't lose it, and which allows obviously for long-term savings, which is really cool as well. Typically, the ownership of the account is with that individual, and the funds will remain with you even if you do change employers, which is a very, very, very important distinction from an FSA. So I personally like HSAs better, just because I like to have the ability to know that, like, if I were to leave an employer, that money will come with me. I know that it rolls over. I don't ever have lose it. You can predict your medical expenses, but for the most part, I'm a pretty healthy guy, and sometimes my medical expenses are a little less predictable. So let's talk a little bit about a flexible spending account, an FSA. So typically offered through your employer. Um, you do not have to have a high deductible plan, which is really nice. So if the high deductible plans scare you to have to dish out that type of money to meet your deductible, uh, and your out-of-pocket expenses, then an FSA might be for you. The contribution levels for this in 2024 were $3,050 for an employee. So that is the max. Obviously, you can see that there are some differences. You can contribute much more to an HSA than you can an FSA. The tax advantages of these are it is also pre-tax. You can withdraw those for qualified medical expenses, which would then also be tax-free. So very similar, actually very identical to an HSA. But here's the kind of difference in this that's very important distinction. Um, the FSAs have a use it or lose it rule. So generally, you have to use this by the end of the plan year. So let's say your plan starts Jan 1, you need to use up that FSA by the end of December. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this is, and I know with this being the last day of the year, this is likely not something that we can fix before the end of this year, but it's something to be planful for next year. uh, we will see a ton of people scheduling their medical appointments towards the end of the year because they have tons of maybe FSA money that they need to use up by the end of the year. So if you're in that position and you're going to lose it this year, let's be more planful next year. Let's plan those medical visits out now in for December. And if you don't need to use them, cancel them. But if we can plan ahead and plan them out now, and I would say schedule them now, because what we do know is if there's a lot of other people out there like you, which there are, that are scheduling appointments at the end of the year, you might not be able to get in at the end of the year, especially if they're for specialists. So, think about your heart doctor, your eye doctor, any of the kidney doctor, things like that. Those are usually booking out 2 3 months, um, 2 or 3 months behind, right? So we want to be planful in that way. There are some employers that do allow a catch up where you won't lose it in the plan year, but it's definitely based on your company policy. So typically, they'll give you maybe a 2.5 months more extension to carry that over. There are some that will allow you to carry over up to $610, which obviously is not, which is about 20%, I would say, of the total um, amount that you can contribute. The other distinction that's important with the FSA is that the ownership is with your employer. So if you leave your job, you typically lose these. So we want to be planful that, if you're planning to make a move here in 2025, you might want to consider an HSA instead of FSA. That's part of the reason why I like a HSA, because life changes. Things change with employers. People get laid off. Life just changes. Maybe you move to a different city and maybe they're not willing to let you work remote. There's many different variables that may come up uh, that might make you entertain moving to a new uh, employer. And in that instance, we don't want to lose those dollars that we've contributed. So, um, let's talk a little bit about deciding between the HSA and FSA. So, I think that, I talked a little bit about why it's important to um, understand the two distinctions and understand like which one, like, with the FSA, like you lose the money if you don't use it at the end of the year, where the HSA, it rolls over. It's very important because we want to be planful with our expenses. So what I would encourage you to do here in December, as we're closing out the year, is plan out those medical expenses. Hopefully, you've been keeping your receipts throughout the year and you have a good indicator of what you pay for, or what you use the money for, as far as maybe your prescriptions or doctor visits, or even sometimes with the HSA, you can use that money for like a fitness gym, depending on the fitness gym and some of the things that you're doing there. That's not always applicable, so you do have to make sure that you understand. But I would say it's a very gray area in that way. I think it's important to also understand your work policies. So right now, as you're going into this new year, understand if there's any changes that are occurring at your employers. There's lots of employers that are making changes. They're trying to find ways to cut to cut operational expenses and really cut that bottom line to be able to drive profits. So, maybe they're changing some of their policies within the HSA and the FSA world. Um, I mentioned too, consider any potential health considerations. So I think back to my life, a couple of years ago, me and my wife, we had our first child. Um, We knew that we were planning to have a kid that going into the year of 2022, and we planned for it. So we added more money to our HSA to be able to support the expenses that would help us for her pregnancy, whether that was her doctor visits, whether that was actual delivery, which is very expensive. And then also, with that, we got a nice tax deduction come tax time, which helped us optimize our tax strategy. So very important to do some future planning. Very important to understand the distinctions. I'm a fan of the HSA. Uh, I'm not saying that FSAs are bad, but you need to be much, much more planful because you will lose that money if you don't use it. So, with that being said, hopefully you all have the things that you need as you go into this new year and thinking about what you're going to do from a medical standpoint. And with that being said, I, as I always say, the power is in how much money you keep, not how much money you make. Thank you so much for being here with me today. My name is Andre Creighton. I am your host, and I look forward to seeing you all in 2025. Take care.
You know Shaletta makes you laugh, but did you know Shaletta Brundage can also make you think and boost your business? Media personality, activist, and comedian Shaletta Brundage founded Shaletta Makes Me Laugh to celebrate and share the best of Black culture. It's a podcasting platform. You can download 10 weekly podcasts hosted by African American subject experts at ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com is also a production house, creating broadcast quality commercial content. And Shaletta and her team of storytellers create powerful promotional campaigns to get businesses the brand awareness they're looking for. Some of Minnesota's top businesses trust Shaletta, and you can too. Get out the word about your events and products and get in front of communities of color with ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. She's got the power to help your business.